This audio is best experienced with headphones. It contains some foul language. Hello there, stranger. Welcome back to my little corner of the internet. I am the Laughing Rook, and as always, it is a pleasure to have you. Today's tale is one of a short walk home. If you enjoy my reading, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I release another video. My Discord server is open to all, so follow the invite link found in the description to visit. And finally, it's worth noting, if this story speaks to you, there is another link in the description to see the original post, where you can upvote it and leave feedback for the author to see. Now take a seat, join me by the fire. Written by Reddit user _bewilder, our story today: Shortcut. If there was anything Vanessa Brown hated more than slaving her life away all hours of the night at her office, it was the long walk home. When she stepped outside, the cold autumn air greeted her. Her warm breath floated up into the night sky in small clouds. She sat on the steps outside. Her feet were met with a swift relief as the comfy inside of her sneakers met them. The strappy heels she wore to work that day were flattering, but were no walking shoes. This small comfort made her even more eager to get home. Her path home was the same every day. Walk around the back of her building, walk a few blocks north, and then cut through a forest dirt path that got her a good 10 minutes closer to her house than the street would. A shortcut that convenient was worth it. The trip was normal at first. Vanessa slightly regretted not bringing a heavier jacket, hugging herself to stay warm. Her mind drifted to what she wanted to do when she first got home when she heard a noise. It was soft at first, but the longer it continued, the clearer the sound became. They were footsteps. From the sound of it, at least 2 or 3 pairs of them. Vanessa kept her head forward. She was a little afraid, but it was a sidewalk after all. People walk on them. Now there just happened to be her and the other group of people there at the same time. Vanessa decided to slow down in an attempt to let the group pass. Their footsteps slowed as well. If it wasn't for the bitter cold already giving her goosebumps, they would have surely appeared. Vanessa suddenly remembered a tactic to see if someone is following you. She quickened her pace, walking toward the end of the road. She looked right and she looked left, back toward the group. She tried to make it look like she was looking out for cars when she saw them in her peripheral vision. It looked like a group of about 3 men. She stepped out into the street and crossed to the other sidewalk. She walked forward, hoping that was the end of it. Her heart sank when she heard the group walking behind her shortly after. Vanessa knew the next part of the test was to cross the street again, but she threw that idea out of the window. She went into a full-on sprint, putting her sneakers to the test. Almost immediately, the footsteps behind her sped up too. The only thought going through Vanessa's head was, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit." She could hear the men yelling and cursing, aggravated at her attempted escape. The dark pavement pounded against her feet, pushing her forward. To her right, Vanessa could see the entrance to the park come into view. She didn't slow down, banking hard at the last second. The loss of momentum slowed her down a little, but the surge of adrenaline in her veins propelled her forward. The surrounding playground was a dark and foreign place. Various rocks, sticks, and forgotten toys threatened to trip her up at every step. The group of men weren't too far behind her. She heard one of them trip over something, sending the rest of them to tumble over. Vanessa saw her chance. She dove into the woods. The moon was full and bright, but the thick canopy dimmed the light dramatically. The scenery around her looked dizzily the same. Thorns and bushes tore at her clothes and skin. Spiderwebs stuck to her hair and face as she looked for a place to hide. Then she came upon it. A cluster of trees formed in a rough circle. They were enormous, ancient oak trees. Moss and vines covered their bark. Their branches overhead were so entangled with each other, it was hard to tell where one began and another one ended. In the middle of the circle was a rotted, fallen tree trunk. Even with it falling apart, Vanessa could tell that it used to be as big, if not bigger, than the ones that surrounded it. The footsteps and yelling were getting closer. Vanessa quickly ducked behind the trunk, laying as still as she could. Through a small hole in the trunk, she could see the men approaching, now with flashlights. One of the men was calling for her. He said they weren't going to hurt her if she came out. In the light of the flashlights, she saw something silver and shiny. It was an axe, and a fairly large one at that. The men stepped closer and closer. Vanessa held her breath, hoping that her heart banging in her ribcage didn't give her away. Suddenly, from above, there was an ear-splitting, groaning noise. Vanessa looked up to see one of the enormous tree's branches sailing downwards, striking one of the men down. The weight from the tree must have been enormous as well, because the man didn't get back up. Before they realized what happened, another tree swung around a branch at an incredible speed at the second man. When the man dropped to the forest floor, he was in 2 pieces. He had been struck in half right at the waist. Vanessa could only watch as the third man tried to scurry away, only to be hoisted in the air, wrapped tight in a thick tree limb. The limb wrapped tighter and tighter, all the while the man screamed to be let go. The man tried to swing his axe at the branch, but it didn't do much good. A loud crack echoed through the air, followed by another, and then another. The man wheezed, both from pain and not being able to suck any more air into his lungs. After one more large crack, the man fell forward limply, dropping the axe to the ground. Once the man was dead, he was released by the large tree. Vanessa was stuck in place. She didn't know whether to run or to stay. She stood up as calmly as possible. With shaky legs, she walked out of the circle of trees. When another wooded groaning sound came from above, Vanessa flinched, closing her eyes. When nothing happened, she opened them. One of the trees has reached a branch down to grab the axe. The branch moved it toward Vanessa, stopping in front of her. She held out her hands and took the weapon. In a voice as soft as the wind and as quiet as the night, she heard someone say, "Take it away from us. Leave." Not knowing what else to do, Vanessa held the axe to her chest and left. She looked back only once, and then ran the rest of the way home. Thank you for listening to this reading. A most unlikely savior for Vanessa indeed, though I dare say the experience still left her somewhat out of sorts. Remember to like and subscribe to see more such content suggested to you in future. If you'd like to leave an upvote for _Bewilder's story on the Nosleep subreddit, there is a link in the description. If you'd like to join my Discord server and submit something to read, or make a suggestion for a future video, there's a link for that too. I hope to continue to upload at least 2 videos per week here, so please, stay tuned. I am the Laughing Rook, and you've been a most welcome visitor. Until next time, friend.